Today's episode of Social Democratic is now available on Patreon. Join our community on Patreon for free or as little as $2.50 a month, and you can help support the show. And when you sign up as a campaign organiser, you get access to our premium episodes, a free ticket to a live show, and Haters Hate and the Rest Vote Labor merch. And to join these comrades, click on the Patreon link in our show's notes. Today's episode of Social Democratic is presented to you by Dunn Street. Dunn Street is a campaign agency that specialises in community organising. We only work with people who want to make the world a better place, and we develop community engagement strategies to win campaigns both big and small. And if you want to create change in your community, then hit us up at dunstreet.com.au. Today's episode is also brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. Maurice Blackburn believe the law should serve everyone and not just those that can afford it. Maurice Blackburn has been fighting for workers' rights in Australia for more than 100 years, and they've helped more than 500,000 people get the compensation they deserve. And if you've been injured at work or on the road, you may have a claim through your superannuation. So for expert and empathetic legal support, call Maurice Blackburn Lawyers today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Social Democratic, your weekly centre-left politics and organising podcast that dives into the progressive campaigns of the day and the people leading them from home and abroad. Obviously, today is our annual pop culture year in review, so we're not diving into campaigns too much, but I guess when you want to make a film or a TV series, there is some sort of campaign involved in that. And to help me unpack a couple of TV shows that were slightly politically related or adjacent, it is our wonderful pop culture correspondent, Tess Farrell, who's on the show today. We're going to be looking at 2 films, and then we'll do some sort of recommendations for the summer as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like the show, give us 5 stars. And be sure to follow us. Follow Social Democratic on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. All right, let's get to today's episode. We are taping this one on a Wednesday evening on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and it is our annual, and I say when we're taping it doesn't really matter because we're punching this up in the middle of the Christmas New Year's break while you're all either at the beach or at the cricket or just on the couch relaxing doing nothing. And intentionally this episode is loosely political. It's annual, we do it every year, but it is our annual pop culture year in review with my good friend and comrade Tess Farrell. Tess, welcome back to Socially Democratic.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Good to have you back. I enjoy this episode. It's always interesting when I send out the text to you and go, what shows have been kind of political this year that we've watched? And you start to think, shit, we're going to struggle this year. But in the end, we kind of come up with a couple. And this year we're going to review 2 films, Civil War, and we're going to review The Apprentice. And then we'll do some recommendations of stuff that we've been watching throughout the year at the end to wrap it up. And as customary, I'm going to let you go first. And we're going to start with Civil War. So over to you.
Let's get into it. Good. Okay, starting with something extremely sort of happy and joyous. I'm just joking. Civil War is a very grim film. It's a dystopian thriller action war film. It was released in April this year. It's written and directed by Alex Garland, who wrote and directed Ex Machina, which is quite a popular sci-fi film. He adapted Never Let Me Go from 2010. And he also wrote 28 Days Later from 2008. So very much so sci-fi kind of guy. And interestingly, he also wrote the novel The Beach. Do you know The Beach?
I do. Great soundtrack.
Made excellent soundtrack, Pure Shores, set in Thailand, made famous because of Leonardo DiCaprio sort of in his prime. So an excellent writer.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
The films, it's pretty he's got quite a varied sort of career across different films.
Was The Beach autobiographical? Ish?
I don't think so. Pretty crazy if it was.
Yeah, right. Every time I hear All Saints, I just think of the beach.
Me too. It's such a good song. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. The film's leading actors are Kirsten Dunst, Kaylee Spaney, and Wagner Moura. It's set in the near future. America is in the middle of a civil war and there's an authoritarian government in place. Film's driven by Kirsten Dunst's character Lee, who is a war photographer, journalist, and it follows a group of journalists, an aspiring journalist trying to make their way to Washington, D.C. because they want to interview the president. It's an A24 film, which means something to some people. They've made a lot of sort of highbrow films, After Sun, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Lady Bird, Moonlight, Past Lives, all great films. Civil War is consistently described as chilling, and although the performances were applauded, there was plenty of discussion about the meaning of the film or the purpose of the film. It's got an 81% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 3.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd, but interestingly, no Golden Globe nominations for the film or Kirsten Dunst, which I thought she gave a great performance, so that's interesting. Moving on to the central plot of the film. So Kirsten Dunst's character, Lee Smith, is a war photographer along with her writer colleague. They set off on a road trip with their mentor, a much older veteran journalist from the New York Times, and a younger journalist who wants to come with them. Dunst's character, Lee, is obviously a nod to the famous World War II war photographer Lee Miller, and it starts off with a bombing in New York and the aftermath and the fallout of that, with Lee taking photos and guiding the new younger photographer who's sort of joined the team. And from there, they're just trying to get to Washington, D.C. to interview a tyrannical third-term president who is under siege. But because it's a civil war, cash is king, there's militia, rebel groups. Traveling is really dangerous, even as media. The president has given orders to shoot any media on the spot. So they encounter several life-threatening situations, executions. It's quite graphic and grim. And, they're also working. They're taking photos of dead bodies, bombings, people hanging. They're not fighting on one side or the other. They're journalists trying to do their job, which can be quite jarring at times. So the key moments in the film are all sort of conflicts as they're trying to get to Washington, D.C. And eventually they ended up embedded in the Western forces in Charlottesville, who helped them get to the White House. And it all comes to head in an action-packed sort of final scene at the White House as they get closer to the president. Did I miss anything? Any other key moments for you, Stephen?
No, not at all. I've got a question of you. When did you see this film?
I saw it when it first came out. Would have been May.
What did you know
probably
about the film before you went and saw it? What was your expectations or understanding about what the film was about?
I think I went in pretty blind. I wasn't expecting anything, although I didn't. After the film, I went and Googled it, obviously, and, there was a lot of talk about it in advance of the film coming out and sort of what it meant, especially in a presidential election year. But, I didn't have any expectations. I did think it was going to comment a lot more on the US, on America, than it did.
Right. I'd heard all I'd heard about it from folks that had gone and seen it was it's absurd. There's no way that California and Texas would be on the same team. Those are the kind of things I heard, right? And I was like, oh no, I'm okay with that. I don't mind if you do over the relationships or the perceived political alignment within the 50 states of the United States. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But do you know what I thought the film was about? I thought it was going to be like Independence Day with Bill, what's his name? Um, who was the main? Bill Pullman.
Which was a
Bill
Bill
Pullman.
Pullman, yeah,
I thought it was
and his
going to be
great
like,
speech.
yeah, exactly. They may take, I thought it was going to be, good versus evil, big explosions, big speeches, all of that kind of stuff. So as I was watching it and the film was unraveling, I'm going, this is grim. Where's the cocky sidekick with the one-liner gags to get us through all of this kind of stuff? And that didn't happen at all. So I came into this film with extremely different expectations. Anyway, I'm just flagging that before we move into some of the other stuff.
That is hilarious. So you were expecting Will Smith to come out and fight aliens,
basically,
essentially.
Yeah. Well,
right. I didn't think that at all.
I thought it was a civil war between the citizens of the United States, and they'd sort of reshuffled the deck of cards, and but I didn't. But I still thought it was going to be, like it was going to be California and Texas taking on the evil East Coast, not even liberals or whatever it was. I didn't know how that was going to politically how it was going to line up, but no, it wasn't that at all. It was really arty farty schmancy pantsy.
Well, that's what I mean when I nodded to A24 films before. That's an A24 film is it's not a blockbuster film.
Yeah. No.
Although still plenty of violence and gore, just a little more artistically presented. So the key characters obviously are Kirsten Dunst as Lee, the seasoned war photographer, who I thought she was fantastic. I thought it wasn't a very dialogue or language heavy film in any way. As you said, there was no sidekick sort of bumping the story along, explaining everything. There are no gags in it. So the actors really had to use their faces and their body languages to convey what was happening, I think, to move the story along. I thought she was great. And yeah, I'm really surprised she hasn't been nominated for a Golden Globe. I don't know if the Oscars will be different. But besides from her performance, the other characters sort of faded into the background for me. None of them really stood out. You've got Wagner Moura, who's from Narcos, who plays Joel, who's the journalist friend traveling with her. He's got a drinking problem. Who wouldn't if you're in the middle of a civil war? He's the one really pushing.
Yeah, no judgment.
I know, no judgment here. If this is me, like you do you. He's the one really pushing on for the interview with the president. Stephen McKinley Henderson plays Sammy, who's the veteran New York Times journalist. He's Lee's older mentor traveling with them. And Kaylee Spaney, who's famous from The Mayor of Easttown, which is a great series with Kate Winslet. And also Priscilla plays Jessie, who is a very young, aspiring war photographer. And yeah, it's interesting the relationship that Jessie and Lee have. They sort of switch places throughout the film as Jessie becomes more confident with her photography and getting into the thick of the conflicts and taking photos. The other two sort of not main characters but supporting cast is Nick Offerman of Parks and Recreation fame and The Last of Us. He plays the president, so the dictator president. But in very minor appearances, like not much screen time. You hear him over the radio throughout the film giving these speeches, and you see him in news bites and news clips, but that's about it right until the end of the film when they get to the White House. And a special mention for Jesse Plemons, who is from Friday Night Lights and Breaking Bad, also Dunst's husband. So I don't know if you knew that, but in that terrifying scene, he's the guy with the love heart glasses on and also the army getup and guns. I don't want to give too much away. But they are married, and he makes a terrifying uncredited cameo in it because he was a last minute fill-in. So those are the main characters. But yeah, for me, Lee, the seasoned war photographer, was really the star of the show. She really carried it all. Any standout cast performances for you?
I hated Kirsten Dunst.
Why?
Oh, she's so miserable. Now, I'm not expecting Bring It On.
Okay.
I'm not expecting Bring It On. Just want to be clear. Although, just to get a little bit more chipper. I just found that she was just like, it was just, okay, we get it. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm in a place right now where I felt broadly, like maybe we'll talk a bit more about the themes of the show, maybe the strengths and weaknesses later, but let's just get out the front here. I felt this film was kind of like a justification of why journalism still matters. And I was like, okay, we get it. It's important. You got to take photos. Oh, the conflict. Do you help the person who's getting their brains blown out, or do you take a photo? Like, yeah, sure. But just, just do it with a smile, Kirsten. Just be a little bit more happy about it all. Like, it was just like, come on, we get it. It's tough work. Like, you've taken this young girl under her wing. Just be nice to her. Don't be a prick. Don't, she just annoyed me throughout the whole film. So much so my partner was watching it, left halfway through and went upstairs to watch something else completely different. She hated it. And I was like, I have to finish things no matter how bad they are. I sat through all of Bad Boy Bubby. I can sit through this. So I just stuck at it. That's my rule. If it's worse than Bad Boy Bubby, leave. If it's not, then stay. And I was like, okay, no, it's not as bad as Bad Boy Bubby, so stick it out. But it was just like, oh, Kirsten, you're killing me. I liked everyone else around her.
Wow, we have completely opposite opinions.
Yeah.
So I'm very much, touch wood this never happens. But when there is a civil war, I'm looking forward to you driving around with a smile on your face.
I will.
When you're reporting on it.
Yep, it's about time. This whole the rest of the country, Queensland, you give me the shits, and I'm coming up there, and I'm going to blow your brains out, and we're going to sort this once and for all, and put on some cool music while we do it.
That is hilarious. I mean, yeah, it goes to the point. I mean, the themes of the film. So, I mean, for me, there are really just two: war and conflict, and all the things that come with it, right? Yeah. PTSD, violence, grief. And that is just, it's there the whole way. It sort of hangs over the film. It's very dark, and there isn't any reprieve or hope, I would say. And that's been sort of quite a common criticism, I think, in reading reviews about the film. And then on the flip side, the other theme is really journalism and media. What is its place? What are the ethics around it, the morals of it? Any other themes you picked up on when you were angrily staring at Kirsten Dunst's performance?
It was a pretty simple film if you think about it. Like they are the two themes, essentially. I am interested in you talking about how Kirsten Dunst's character and Priscilla's character, what's her name? Kaylee Spaney or whatever?
Kaylee Spaney's character, Jessie. Yeah.
She's going to be careful. She's going to get typecast because she is forever going to play young people.
Yeah.
She's going to get the Michael J. Fox problem soon if she doesn't take some sort of older role soon. Because I couldn't, like, she's like 28, isn't she?
Yeah, she's not as young as she looks.
Yeah, she looks young. She looks really young.
She looks like a teenager.
Oh.
I thought she was a teenager when it
If
first
they
started.
redo a reboot of the OC, you could drop her in there, no worries. But what you said that you found that those two characters flipped every now and then. I didn't notice that.
Well, so at the beginning, it's Lee, Kirsten Dunst's character, who is she's just getting on with it, right? When there's that first bombing in New York, she's right in there, she's taking the photos. But by the end, she's not.
Yeah, okay.
She's not thinking straight. She's embedded in with the Western forces, not able to really propel herself forward. So there's kind of this switch, I think.
Certainly in Washington, D.C., right? When they're at the Capitol, that's definitely happening. But I didn't understand why that was happening. Like, had she kind of lost motivation for her job? Like, was she not sure if she was going to get annual leave at the end of this year? Like, I can't understand why was she all of a sudden having misgivings about her vocation? And what a time to do it. If anyone's seen the film,
Right at the
yeah,
end.
if anyone's seen the film, I'll be turning, Kirsten, this is now not the time nor the place for you to be questioning your role within the greater media landscape of this country. I need you to take photos.
Yeah, she falls at the last hurdle, that's for sure. My interpretation was that it was the PTSD coming through from everything that she had been through. That it was just all coming to a head, and she couldn't get past it. That was my taking of it. And also that, you know, there was a new, younger war photographer that needed to step up and carry the torch, and, you know, they kind of switched roles by the end.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just didn't. I didn't understand that. That was the bit that was annoying me the most. In fact, I think I was yelling at the screen, just leave it behind. Just keep going. Like, we're not trying to do spoiler alerts here, but just, you know, I actually kind of like the guy that was hanging on to them, the almost the chaperone.
Yeah.
Pointing them where to go.
Picking them up. I mean, it is interesting. Like, I don't think I've watched a film like that where you kind of see the media embedded actually in war. So I found that part a little bit interesting. You certainly wouldn't be given a second go if you had to be carried along by someone in the middle of a siege, in the middle of a takeover. So you know, that was interesting. But also, this film is not set in reality, which is, you know, what a lot of people really struggled with. It was a strong criticism of the show that it wasn't Democrats versus Republicans. You don't know the reasons why there is a civil war. It's not referenced. There's no particular issue that they're talking about, taxes, immigration, wokeness, or whatever. It's just you're arrived at the end of a civil war and you've got no meaning behind it, which maybe is why, like, some people are so frustrated with her character, because you're just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
what's happening.
That is my biggest criticism of the film.
Yeah,
was I thought that it would be a slow bleed, or what do they say in art school, about, you know, dropping us cookies along the way for us to start to unpack why this war was happening, but we never got there, and that really annoyed me.
No.
There was just so much undiscoverable questions. There's so many questions that weren't answered from this film, and that was the bit that pissed me off the most. That and Kirsten Dunst's overacting.
If you were to think about it more broadly, is the whole meaning of the film, it's like, what's the point? What's the point of conflict? Like, why are we here? How did we get here? You know, if you take all the, you know, because there is this scene where they get caught in the crossfire of two groups of snipers on opposite sides of the road, and I think they ask them, who are you shooting at, and they don't even know. So this sort of like crazy, no one knows who's the good guys, who are the bad guys. But, you know, in the midst of a war, is that how it feels? Is that what it's like?
I mean, but that's such a contrarian kind of, you know, oh, war's so bad. I mean, obviously war's bad. People die in war, but there is a purpose behind them, you know, like.
Yeah, so, and that's what's missing from the whole film, is that how do we get here?
And I'd like to have known that. You know, in a film as well, you want to root for someone. And I didn't know who to root for because they didn't tell us. What were your policies?
You wanted the campaign strategy behind
Just
it.
Just even give us a couple of things, like, so we can work out. Like, why was the president such a tyrannical ruler? Okay, I get it. He went for the third term thing. A little bit of a window into our future. But other than that, you know, maybe he had a good reason. I don't know. We didn't find out these things.
Did you have any strengths of the film? Did you see were there any positives?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there were a couple of scenes there that you were gripping. And the one after, so they're in the middle of nowhere It's probably in the second act, and it's the when they remember the other car joins them and they have some hijinks and they swap seats or swap cars at 100 k's an hour, and then they park, and then and that leads to that scene. I don't know what I'm doing here without trying to give anything away, but basically it leads to a scene where there is a confrontation with some soldiers, and they've uncovered basically an open grave, and that was tense. Like the tension was huge, and kind of that kind of shit. How are we going to get out of it? And it's also one of those films, like, you know, when you're watching a film, you're going, you know, what are the over and unders on each of these individual characters making it out of each of these scenes? Like, you kind of imagine, you know, it's one of these films like when the four of them get in the car, not all four of you are going to make it. And
exactly, yeah, it was great at building tension.
So that was good. The final scene actually is, you know, I was kind of like, let's just finish this thing. And it was a good tour of the White House, to be fair. I liked that. And what else did I enjoy about the film? I thought the sets were quite good. The way that they sort of showed America in this dystopian world was interesting, both in the urban landscapes and also in the more rural settings as well. And you felt like you went on a journey, and that was good. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree. It felt very real. It felt like you were dropping into what could be America today, just in the middle of a war. And I think the cinematography was great. I thought it was quite beautiful, the way it was shot, and there were a lot of beautiful landscapes and cityscapes as well. So that was definitely strengths for me. I think we've kind of covered the weaknesses, have we?
Yeah.
Any more to add?
One more about Kirsten Dunst. I felt like Kirsten Dunst she was able to channel her anger, because I think it was reflecting where her career had gone.
No, I think we are really on different sides when it comes to Kiki Dunst. She's amazing. She was in The Power of the Dog. She got nominated for an Oscar, I think. I feel like she's on the up and up. She does not get enough credit for the things that she has contributed to Hollywood. Jumanji, Bring It On, The Bachelorette. I know I'm missing the good ones, but she's absolutely incredible. And I don't think she gets enough clout. So I'm a big fan and stan, so I'll defend her. Maybe that was the bias that I went into this film with.
I never knew she was with Jake Gyllenhaal for a period there.
Oh yeah, that was her. She was, that was a pretty big long-term relationship, I think. She was Mary Jane in Spider-Man too. Like, she's been a consistent Hollywood actor.
Yeah. I'm just listing performances. Okay. I just give it to me in alphabet. There, thank you. Okay, so I guess we would first remember her from
Little Women?
Interview with a Vampire, maybe, or Little Women, yeah. And then she did Jumanji. I'm skipping over a whole bunch of things. Wag the Dog, she had like a small role. She was the actress that played the victim in the country that was in a, whatever. Drop Dead Gorgeous. And then the Virgin Suicides. Okay, I think Virgin Suicides is her first significant role, right?
Yeah.
Also, the Air, great soundtrack. And then that was in 1999. 2000, she does Crow, Lucky Town, Bring It On, and Deeply. I don't remember Deeply at all, but obviously Bring It On. That is like, if we were to do the whole, and I'm not going to use it, but I would say that's her peak, at a peak of her powers, is Bring It On. Oh, actually, no.
What about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? Marie Antoinette?
Yeah.
Marie Antoinette was probably her peak.
Elizabethtown. I actually quite liked Elizabethtown.
Is that the one with Orlando Bloom,
yep.
I think? Yeah.
And then Oh my God, she did 2 Spider-Mans. She did 3 Spider-Mans. But then it's downhill from there. Oh, Melancholia. There's 3 hours I'm never going to get back again. I've never seen Anchorman 2. Didn't know she was in it. Refused to because I don't want to ruin the first one. Hidden Figures. Nah.
Wait, wasn't she TV Fargo, which everyone loved?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure she was in the first season.
She did
or
10
2
episodes
seasons.
of the first season.
Yeah. So I think she's not getting enough credit. And plus, she is a woman, so she had to take time out of the workforce to have her children.
Has she got kids?
She's got kids. She's got kids with the guy from Friday Night Lights.
Oh, of course. I would say 2004, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Spider-Man 2, Wimbledon.
Wimbledon is such a good film. Have you seen that?
Woody Allen, right?
No, I don't know who directed it.
Didn't she do a Woody Allen film?
Yeah, but it wasn't that. This definitely is not a Woody Allen film, but it's a great rom-com with Paul Bettany. She's a famous tennis star.
Yep.
Trying to find romance.
Yep. And then 2005, Elizabethtown, 2006, Marie Antoinette, and I'm reckoning that's it. After that, it's all downhill from there. But you don't think so. So anyway, I think her career has struggled since the early 2000s, but you think otherwise.
Yeah, well, I just think she's still giving it a red hot go, and I'll encourage her to keep on trying.
Very good. Kirsten Dunst fan club.
This is.
Tess
I'll start. I'll start a fan page of my own.
Very good. What else we got?
Any other bits and pieces?
Not from me.
Most of it.
I'm interested to find out who the social democrat of the show is.
Well, that's the thing about this film. There's no way to really tell.
Indeed.
We don't know. All that war and no context. You don't know anything about the politics of the characters whatsoever. They could be anything, absolutely of any political persuasion. We could make assumptions.
Go.
You could assume that the veteran New York Times journalist is a social democrat, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You can, the journalists in the end, obviously, they're embedded with the forces trying to take over the White House. So, they're fighting against the dictatorship. So you assume they're on the side of the good guys, but these are just assumptions. What about you?
Yeah, I struggled I was interested to get what your take was, so I couldn't think of who the social democrat of the show was.
I think that really sums up the film. People didn't really know why we were there, what was happening, who they are. Hence, sort of, despite my love for Kirsten Dunst, and I thought she made an incredible performance, it hasn't been reflected in any accolades thus far. So, it was just a confusing film.
So would you recommend to the listeners of Socially Democratic that they should watch Civil War if they haven't already?
Not if you want to feel good.
Okay. Over the summer holidays, when would be the best time to watch Civil War? New Year's Day after a massive hangover?
No, that'll make you feel even worse. I'm a, comedy office reruns on a hangover. Depends what kind of person you are. I'd have it on in the background if I was, maybe trying to sleep.
Right.
Would you recommend it?
No.
Okay, there we go.
There you go. That's the first time I think we've ever disagreed on a show.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you in parts, but I just loved her performance. I thought it was really good. Sorry. Can I take back what I said? If you are a Kirsten Dunst fan and you want to support her career, please go and download it, watch it at any time of your choosing over the summer. But please be aware that it is violence and conflict and gore. It is not hope, happy
Yeah, okay.
future.
I had this image of you and I having a coffee with the director in New York, in the Lower East Side, and we meet him for like sort of a catch up, and he sort of says to us, "What did you think about the film? Would you recommend it?" And I said, I go, "No, not really." And you say to him, "Look, I would watch it I would have it on the background if I was going to sleep." And how the director would feel, "Oh, I'll take that."
Well, lucky that's not going to happen.
Lucky for him or her, perhaps. Him. All right. Now, let's do the prequel to Civil War, which is The Apprentice.
We should clarify that The Apprentice is the film, not the long-running
NBC
reality television show.
Indeed. The Apprentice is indeed a 2024 biographical film that examines Donald Trump and his career as a real estate businessman. I use quote unquote businessman in New York City in the 1970s and 80s. And it's essentially what I would call the origin story of Donald J. Trump and his relationship with his attorney, Roy Cohn. It's directed by a man by the name of Ali Abbasi, and it's written by Gabriel Sherman. Ali Abbasi is not known to us in the Western cinema world. He has directed a couple of films in Arabic, from memory, a Swedish thriller, and that's about it. The film stars Donald Trump is played by Sebastian Stan, who you'll know as the Winter Soldier or Bucky Dent from the Marvel cinema. And I've discovered that Tess isn't into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I've never seen a Marvel film, I don't think, not on purpose.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, but I am a long-time Sebastian Stan fan from when he was on Gossip Girl.
Yes, he was on Gossip Girl as well. That is true. He was also Tommy Lee Jones in Pam and Tommy. Did you see that?
I didn't see it because they didn't get Pammy's permission to do that, and she did not agree. They didn't approach her about the story. So, from a moral standpoint, I chose not to watch
good
it.
on you. I did.
I think I actually just didn't have Apple or something, and I couldn't watch it.
That's okay. We'll cut that out, and we'll leave it. We'll leave the morality part in. So it's got So it's got Winter Soldier playing Donald Trump. It's got Jeremy Strong from Succession, Kendall Roy, playing his attorney, Roy Cohn. It's got Martin Donovan as Trump's father, Fred. And it's got Maria Bakalova as Trump's very first wife, Ivana. We'll do more about the characters in a moment. Central plot, I'm going to go over this really, really quickly because I guess it's sort of it starts in 1973. Donald Trump is young, like he's in his, I would say early. I have to do the math on that, but I guess he's sort of mid-20s, early 30s maybe. And he's working for his old man. Fred Trump owns a lot of. He basically is a slumlord in New York City. And Donald Trump works for his old man, basically collecting rent and helping him do the job of running a slumlord kind of operation. But they're in trouble. They've got a complaint against them by the federal government. They're investigating Fred Trump for discrimination against African American tenants. And Donald Trump comes across Roy Cohn, who is this contentious New York City lawyer at an exclusive restaurant, and he enlists or seeks to get Roy Cohn to give him a hand with this problem that they're having with the federal government over this investigation into Fred Trump's dealings with their tenants. What happens is Roy Cohn blackmails. This is obviously a true story. It's been written about by friggin' everyone. The lead prosecutor with photos of him at a cabana as a cabana boy with a cabana boy. The prosecutor settles a case for very little, despite all the evidence, overwhelming evidence of racial discrimination. And in doing that, Donald J. Trump falls further and further into Cohen's orbit, and now starts to see him as a mentor, and more of a mentor than his father. That's kind of Act 1. And then we kind of jump to then Act 2, which is now Trump has kind of made it. But the bridge there is that Roy takes him under his wing and teaches him about media relations and how to dress, and offers him these 3 rules. And these 3 rules are: always attack, never admit you're wrong, and always claim victory even if you're defeated. And so we go through these whole series of moments throughout this period in the 1970s and 1980s. He wants to develop the Commodore Hotel, which is this derelict hotel in Midtown around Grand Central Station in the 1970s, which is an absolute shithole. At that time, it's funny you think about what New York is like now. The areas like Midtown was a dump in the 1970s and 1980s. Times Square was rated X cinemas and homeless people, and it was a dodgy area. And he wants to buy the Commodore Hotel, and he enlists Roy Cohn to help him blackmail officials to get tax exemptions for the project from City Hall, basically. And then we see him develop Trump Tower, Atlantic City. So we go through all this, and then it kind of wraps up with Trump getting his guts liposuctioned and his scalp surgery. So he fixes up his baldness, and he's sitting down in his big palatial office in Midtown, Trump Tower, talking to this ghostwriter who's going to write his autobiography called The Art of the Deal. And that's where the film wraps up. Now, anything before we go into the characters? I've covered most of it, right, in terms of the plot?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I do have a question, though. You knew all of the details before going into it?
On this film? Yes.
Yes.
Did you?
Okay. Well, I know I'm the opposite.
Oh, wow. Okay, right, yeah.
So it was a very different experience. I think I had a very different experience to you.
What were you expecting?
But no, it was a lot of learning for me. I have to admit, I don't know if this is embarrassing or not, but pre-2015, Trump is an unknown to me, besides from when he was on Home Alone. So for me, this was the first time I was hearing about a lot of these stories. I knew sort of about his relationship with his dad, and obviously about real estate and business and Ivana and all that. But yeah, I was learning a lot. So
okay, so what were the scenes or the moments in this chronological history of Donald Trump from the 70s to the 80s that jumped out at you and go, oh wow, I didn't know that, or that surprised you or shocked you? Or
I didn't know about his family besides his dad. So I didn't know about his brother, sort of his sisters, his mother. So that was all pretty fascinating to me. I think his sort of family history, I had to go away and Google. So yeah, that was a big one for me. But I didn't know about his relationship with Roy either. So
yeah.
I was coming in fresh.
Roy Cohn is an interesting character in itself. You could do a film about him. He was a solicitor. He's originally from New York, grew up in the Bronx from a reasonably wealthy Jewish family, went to Columbia, is an aspiring young attorney, and he gets assigned to work with Senator McCarthy during the McCarthy trials. And so that's where he's sort of his star begins to shine. He also was a prosecutor in a very high-profile espionage case with the Rosenbergs, which is Googleable as well. And then obviously he moves into this orbit with Donald Trump, but he's also kind of in that era when the Republican Party moves towards the Reagan-style Republican Party. Win at all costs, sort of that in that Nixon to Reagan period, and Roy Cohn is very much in that. Roger Stone, who we've probably heard of before as well, who then eventually became a bit of a big name identity within that side of the Republican Party. It features in a small way in this film. And there's little flicks to what we eventually know as sort of the Trump era style Republican Party, and sort of saying that these are some of the seeds that were planted whilst Trump was just building his business. So Roy Cohn is actually quite an influential figure, not just within the Trump world, but also within New York politics and the law. And it's a pretty tragic ending to his life as well, which we'll probably talk about in a moment. But yeah, it's an interesting story. Do you want to let's do characters before we do? Do you want to do themes first or characters first?
Characters. Let's do it.
So Sebastian Stan, Donald Trump. I thought he did an excellent job. And it's tough because I thought about it, like there's been so many impersonators do Donald Trump. Like every late night TV host all thinks they can do a really good Donald Trump, and it's comedic. There's the guy that's currently on SNL that does probably the best impersonation of Donald Trump. Alec Baldwin for a couple of seasons of SNL did Donald Trump, but they're parodies. And so, the challenge for Sebastian Stan was, how do you impersonate Donald Trump without it looking like a comedy parody? Because then you wouldn't take it seriously, And I thought he got it right. There's a fine line, right, between tipping into parody, but also being a spitting image type style.
Yeah, I thought his performance was amazing. It wasn't over the top, and it was all in the detail. His little movements with his lips, the little inflections in his voice. It's if you just looked at him, you wouldn't think it was Donald Trump really, but you put him in that sort of setting, and just his sort of body language and just a slight tweak to his voice was incredible. I thought
as the film went on, he got more and more like Donald Trump. Did you find that?
Yeah.
At the start, he just didn't feel like Donald Trump, but the way he was acting as well, and the way that the character was portrayed, it didn't feel Trump-esque, and I thought that was interesting. I thought, well, we maybe talk a bit more about that in terms of the strengths of the film. Jeremy Strong, Roy Cohn. One thing to note about Jeremy Strong is that he is an O away from an EGOT at this very moment. So an EGOT is, and if you've watched 30 Rock and Tracy Jordan's quest to get an EGOT, you'll know what I'm talking about. An EGOT, do you know what an EGOT is, Tess?
Yeah. Okay. It's an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony.
I think it's a Golden Globe, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it a Grammy? Maybe you can trade them. I thought it was a Golden Globe. Man, if it's a Grammy, that's pretty impressive.
No, it must be a Grammy. Hang on, let me Google it.
Anyway, he's won an Emmy and Jeremy Strong has won both an Emmy and a Golden Globe for his role as Kendall Roy in Succession. He just won a Tony this year for An Enemy of the People, a Broadway production. And he's been nominated as Best Supporting Actor for a Motion Picture in this year's Golden Globes, but they haven't released the nominations for the Academy. You would imagine that he would be nominated for it, and thus in the running to get the O in EGOT to get an EGOT, which is quite it kind of makes sense because the guy is obsessed about acting.
He's intense, very intense,
and does the whole method thing like.
He really gets into the method thing, so much so that he did come under criticism from his Succession castmates, I think. But the reason why it was such an amazing performance by him is, or how I know it was such an amazing performance, because I didn't think about Kendall Roy once the whole time throughout the whole film. I wasn't thinking, that's Kendall from Succession. So he really gave it his all.
Fantastic performance by him. He's getting to the point, like, remember when Meryl Streep was like super hot in terms of her career. Anything that she was in was amazing. Like it was Meryl Streep, I'm just going to go see that because it's going to be amazing. And he's getting to the point now that he's almost kind of anything that he is in, it's going to be amazing. Such as the career that he's having right now, win streak. Ivana Trump was played by an actress, a Bulgarian actress by the name of Maria Bakalova. A lot of folks won't know her too much, but she played Borat's daughter in the second Borat film, Borat subsequent movie film. She, if you remember, have you seen the second Borat film?
No, I find the Borat films so uncomfortable, just deeply, deeply uncomfortable. I can't watch them. It makes me shiver thinking about them. So no, I haven't seen the second one.
Right. I know that every bloke that listens to this podcast definitely hasn't seen the second one. But so to remind all the blokes listening, the actress that plays Ivana Trump, Maria Bakalova, is Borat's daughter, who was in the scene with Rudy Giuliani in the hotel room.
Yes. Okay. I remember that clip. That clip.
Okay. Themes of the film. Winners and losers, I think, is a theme. And obviously that is almost the theme of Donald Trump. But I think what's interesting is that there's a shift in Trump's personality itself from being he's a loser at the start. He's an absolute loser. He's a loser in the eyes of his father. He thinks he's a loser, but he's so desperate to win the affection and the love and the respect of his father that eventually you see this moment where he shifts from being a loser to being a winner. And almost there's almost this trading places that happens between him and Roy Cohn, because Roy's a winner at the start. He teaches Donald Trump how to be a winner. But in the second act, Roy's a loser. Donald Trump's a winner. It's like trading places. There's themes in there about Trump and his relationships with the people in his life, his father, his brother, his wife. Even Don Jr. gets a cameo appearance on the floor as a child. Not the first time he'll end up on the floor. So, watching that also, he becomes more and more distant to the people around him. There's that scene when, do we do spoiler alerts and talk about, people must know what's happened to Donald Trump's brother, right? Surely we all know. He's dead.
Yeah.
I've just told you. He dies through alcohol addiction, basically. And that scene in the bedroom when his wife seeks to console him about the death of his brother, because I genuinely do think he loved his brother, but he just couldn't allow that to happen. He couldn't show vulnerability to his wife. And I was like, it's almost that scene like, when Anakin becomes Darth Vader. You were the chosen one. Not that he ever was, but like this moment where you're going, this is where you start to become a prick.
Yeah. He just shuts off completely.
Yeah. So there were some of the themes. Any other sort of themes that come out here that I might be missing?
No, winners and losers is the vibe. It's all about power. Who gets it? Who doesn't get it? Who gets to keep it? Just Donald Trump's general climb to power. I think you covered it.
So strengths of the film that I liked, I just thought the performances from both Strong and Stan were excellent. And the whole film basically hangs on them. If they can't nail the two characters they're playing, then the film's going to suck. Like I said before, Sebastian Stan did a great job in terms of it not being a parody. And I thought that was excellent. I thought the performance by Maria Bakalova, who played Trump's wife Ivana, was actually fantastic. And interesting watching her character become so popular, and Trump, that was just pissing him off that she was stealing all the limelight. She did such a great job. She almost stole the limelight as an actress in the film as well, which is interesting. I just thought it was great. It captured New York in the 1970s and 1980s. And I say that you sound like, Stephen, you weren't there in New York in the 1970s, but I was lucky enough to go to New York in 1982 with my mum and dad, and through the eyes of a 7-year-old,
What?
in the eyes of a 7-year-old, that's what New York looked like. It actually looked like that, and I just thought they did such a great job of capturing the grind that is New York, but also sort of the glitz and glamour of New York as well. It was super.
How old
I
were
was
you?
7.
Yeah, wow, you are lucky.
Yeah, unbelievable. Any other strengths that I've missed, Tess, that
No, I think, the whole 80s setting was outstanding to me, like seeing New York as it once was. I think this is the first film I've watched that's sort of set in the 80s but not made in the 80s. Like, do you know what I mean? Like a sort of period piece of the 80s. I can't, in like the last couple of years, I can't think of a film that's set in the 80s. I thought that was incredible. Like the interiors of the houses, the bars, suits, like it was all just so amazing. But I'm the same as you. The performances were the stand out for me.
So then we turn to weaknesses. And my only question I have is, did we need this film? Like, we get to watch Donald Trump 24/7, basically since 2015. We've all read the books. We all watch cable news every night. We all read Maggie Haberman in the New York Times every week. Like, did we need to watch a biopic on a bloke that basically is on our televisions and in the papers every single friggin' day?
I think that is a really interesting take, because I think a lot of people were disengaging from this film. So did you see that Sebastian Stan was invited to do Variety's Actors on Actors, which is a famous sort of interview style where actors during award season interview other actors, so right now Paul Mescal from Gladiator 2 and Ariana Grande from Wicked interview each other, and no other actor would do it with him because they didn't want to talk about Trump. So he's not included in Actors on Actors for award season because no other actor wanted to sit down with Sebastian Stan and talk about his performance as Trump. I think it's like, why can't we go back and have a little look? For someone like me who has buried her head in the sand about Trump and his history and his background sort of up until 2015, this is quite interesting to me and I learned quite a lot. But I think, there's quite a few people who just want to switch off on the commentary about his life. And I don't know if I agree with that. I found it really interesting to learn a little more about his family history and his relationship with his brother. Of course, if you already knew that, that would not be, all that interesting. But the film did not make me like Trump anymore. It didn't, glamorize him in any way. But did we need another film? Did we need this film? I don't know. But I don't think we should shy away from sort of diving into looking at Trump's life, right?
Well, I think you've answered my question because you didn't know a lot about that and you found that engaging. So maybe the answer is yes, we do need this film. Because I just kind of, I don't know, I wanted to watch it and learn more. And I'm not saying that I didn't learn things. I did learn things I didn't know about. And I have to be careful here, but the rape scene, I didn't know about that. I knew about the brother, but I didn't know completely all about the brother because I knew that Trump doesn't drink, and people believe the reason why he doesn't drink is because of his older brother, his addiction to alcohol, and he just didn't want to do that, and that had a lasting impact on him. So there were things I did learn, but I just, but yeah. The other thing that
there are films about every other president, aren't there? So this is it. Besides from parodies and comedic sketches, there isn't that much film or television about Trump.
No, it is true. I feel like there will be a lot more in the future.
Well, there will be, yes.
The other thing that Robert Ebert had said that it's two films in one. The first hour is the 70s where Trump learns the craft, and the second hour is the 80s, and Trump's now a tycoon and a terrible human being. But what happened in the middle part?
I agree.
Why didn't we didn't learn the stuff in the middle? And I agreed with that as well. Other bits to talk about, and there's actually quite a lot, so I'll just try to be very, very quick. First of all, Donald Trump himself described the film as cheap, defamatory, and a politically disgusting hatchet job, and described all of those involved in it as human scum.
And the normal reaction,
Thank you, Donald.
I think.
Billionaire Dan Snyder, who used to own the Washington Commanders NFL team, had donated money to the production of the film, believing that it was going to be a positive portrayal of Donald Trump. And this guy actually is a huge Trumper. Like, he's donated significant amounts of money to this most recent, to his 2016 and 2020 presidential campaigns. And after seeing a cut of the film in February, cracked it and he withdrew his money.
Wow.
And so that meant that then they needed to go find money to source the release and distribution in the United States. And so that's why it took a while for it to be released in the US. It only got released in October this year. But even though it went, because it was released at Cannes earlier in the year, like in May or whenever the hell the Cannes Film Festival is on. The film obviously includes a whole bunch of controversial scenes, including those that depict Trump violently raping his wife, Ivana, and abusing amphetamines in order to lose weight, and also undergoing liposuction and plastic surgery to remove a bald spot. And the rape scene was based on a deposition under oath by Ivana Trump herself during the divorce proceedings in 1989. And then she then claimed that the term rape was not meant in a literal or criminal sense and was made in high emotion. So she retracted it years later, and it said she had a loving relationship with Donald and, mother of their children, yada, yada, yada. And in terms of the amphetamine use, the directors had said that it had been written in a number of biographies about Donald Trump, that was the case. So that was how them justifying it. And Stephen Chung, who's the communications director for the Trump campaign, sent a letter of cease and desist to the filmmakers in May this year after seeing it in Cannes, to which they ignored it, but they didn't pursue any legal case. So one wonders if they didn't want to go into a court and then have to argue whether or not all of these things happened or not. He's already got, he at the time had enough court cases to deal with. Probably didn't want to add one more to the list. But in the end, it didn't matter because he won. So any other bits and pieces that you noted that I've missed there, Tess?
No, that's fairly comprehensive.
In terms of favourite, I don't have any favourite lines, but favourite scene is the one in the car with Roy Cohn when he's coaching him because Trump's on the phone to a journalist talking up that he's going to open up this new hotel in Midtown, and Roy's coaching him on how to really get the hyperbole about, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. I just thought it was a really, really funny scene, and also just that classic 1970s in a car with a car phone with the cord, brilliant. Why did we stop doing that? We should bring them back.
I know. I mean, it's not safe, but they look very cool. It's amazing. Imagine just being able to dial into someone's car.
Bring that back. If we're bringing vinyl back, let's bring back the car phones too. That's all I'm saying. And my social democrat of the year is Ed Koch, who was the mayor of New York from 1978 to 1989. He had like a scene where Trump goes to talk to him about wanting to get tax abatement on him building Trump Tower.
That's the only social democrat?
Basically, yeah. And all the people in the courtroom scenes that lost constantly.
I mean, should we be surprised when it's a film about Trump?
Yeah. You could do a film about Ed Koch, actually. Another interesting character in New York politics.
You should pitch
11 years he was mayor.
It's a long time.
So there we go. My recommendations, if I met the director, I would say, yes, I will go see your film and I'll tell other people to go see your film. Tess, what would you tell the director?
I would tell the director that I learn a lot from his film and I would recommend people watch his film.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Should we do our summer recommendations before we close out this show?
Yeah, let's do it. Who wants to go
You
first?
go first.
Okay. I've got a few TV shows. Industry on binge. It's not new. It's got 3 seasons, but the 3rd season just came out this year. New, fresh graduates working on the trading floor at Pierpoint, a fictional bank in London. It's pretty dark. Another dark thing to add to your list. Quite a deep look into the finance industry, how it treats women, commentary on the English class system. Lots of money, lots of sex and drug use, so not one to put on around children, but it's great. It's probably the biggest hook that I got this year watching it. I couldn't stop watching it. I just binged it all. The Day of the Jackal is also on binge. That's a British MI6 sniper situation show. It's a remake of a 70s film or book, I think, and that's starring Eddie Redmayne. Have you seen the original?
Years and years ago.
But that's really good. A lot of suspense. You got to try and work out what happens. So, yeah, that's great.
What channel is that on?
That's on binge. The Day of the Jackal.
Excellent.
I think there's still one episode to come out sort of in December. So by the time January rolls around on your summer holidays, you'll have the whole series. And that really hooked me as well. So that's a great sort of Boxing Day holiday thing to binge. My last TV show is Nobody Wants This on Netflix with Kristen Bell and Seth Cohen, aka Adam Brody. A beautiful modern romance with, the whole Jewish man meets non-Jewish woman.
Shiksa.
Will they fall in love? A shiksa. It was phenomenal. And you know what? Just joyous, I mean, we've talked a lot about sort of dark, deep themes today. If you want some joy, you want some love, you want some really good humor, put on Nobody Wants This. It's on Netflix. My only other recommendation is Dune 2. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have if you like Dune, but any of the Dune films are amazing sci-fi. And I don't even really like sci-fi as a genre in general, but I saw this at the IMAX earlier this year, which is definitely not on brand for me, but it's an excellent film. They're both excellent films, Dune 1 and Dune 2. They're great summer watching.
Fear is the mind killer. Okay. I didn't like Nobody Wants This. I haven't finished it, to be fair.
Sorry. Okay. We're really clashing.
I really wanted to like it. I follow Erin Foster on Instagram. I think she's a scream.
She's amazing.
She's brilliant. And
what did you like about it?
Erin Foster's sister's character, basically, annoyed me.
From Succession?
No, they all. No, sorry. Wait. Sorry, my apologies. Who? Kirsten? What's her name? Who was the main?
Kristen Bell.
She annoyed
is
me.
the main character. She annoyed you.
Everyone else was great.
So basically, this is Stephen hates all Christians and can't watch their shows or films.
A little bit. No, I like her. I've liked her in a lot of other shows as well. There's something about her. Maybe because she was not the character. You weren't rooting for her, I don't think. Like, I wasn't either, really. I was rooting for them. Yeah.
I loved him. I loved Adam Brody. And the supporting cast is really good. Kristen Bell's sister, her character is hilarious. And the dynamic between her and
Jonah.
And Jonah from Veep.
He's brilliant. He is fantastic.
He's so good. So watch it for the supporting characters too.
Okay. I will go back and give it another go. I'm halfway through. Just finished the damn thing, Steve.
It's hilarious. It's definitely so Erin Foster wrote it, but it's definitely from a female point of view. Like, I haven't seen sort of humor and dating written as craftily and as accurately from a female point of view.
Yeah.
So maybe that might be the disconnect for you. Sorry,
I don't know.
Steve.
I really like Erin. I just was like, just the casting. I just thought, because Seth Cohen's great. I've always loved Seth Cohen. But yeah, I just thought she was miscast. Is my gut feel. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay, my recommendations, or the shows that I watched this year, basically, that I enjoyed the most, The Diplomat, starring Kerry Russell. She's stopped being a hidden spy for the Russians in the 1980s and is now a diplomat for the United States government in the UK. She's the diplomat. She's the US ambassador to the United Kingdom. And it's kind of like during her tenure at that mission, a lot of shit happens. Probably more than she anticipated, I would say, in the brief. And it's her dealing with that. It's her dealing with relationships, both her own husband, who is also who's played by Sewell. What's his first name again? Rufus Sewell. He used to be a diplomat, so he's having to deal with being the handbag. She's stepping forward. The Democrats also have a keen eye on her to become the next candidate for the president. So that's happening in the background. And she's just dealing with relationships both in her private life but also in her public life. And there's a whole bunch of other really interesting characters in it as well. Really good acting. I like Kerry Russell. Her characters just don't fuck around, and I love that about her. So yes, I think you should. There's 2 seasons of The Diplomat that are out. Forgive me, I can't remember what channel it's on. It's on Netflix, isn't it?
It's on Netflix. Yeah, that's a great summer binge.
Oh yeah, totally. And you can rip through those. I think I watched the whole season 2 on the flight home from the States just recently. And I just was like, I'm not going to go to sleep until I finish this. So that was great. Another show that I also watched a lot with my international travel was Slow Horses. Came to it late, didn't know about it, in fact. And someone had said to me earlier in the year, Stephen, because I do love, I love spy genre TVs and books, as you know. And Stephen, you're going to love this. Starring Gary Oldman, amongst many others. It's set in London, current day. They're all MI5 operatives. So that's domestic secret intelligence, British intelligence. He and Gary Oldman's character leads a motley crew of discarded MI5 agents that Regent Park, or the head of the section, think that they're all useless and they're just being put to one side. Yet they keep on solving issues that are happening with domestic terrorism in and around London. Gary Oldman, in some ways, kind of reminds me of my old boss, the late Senator Alex Gallagher. Just because he was such a tough boss to work for at the TWU, but you kind of love him. And I just that's what the relationship that he has. He never says anything good to his staff. When they do good things, they're hopeless. And when they are, he tells them that. So maybe it was a bit too close to home for me, but I just loved it. It's 4 seasons or something. I can't wait for the next one to come out. Just classic, good, solid British drama. They just don't ever fuck it up. They get it right every time.
It is brilliant. Like that's got to be one of my favorite TV shows of the last couple of years. And Gary Oldman's the best. But it's got a lot of great other characters too.
Yeah. What's her name? From 4 Weddings at a Funeral. That's terrible. Double-barreled surname. Kristen Scott Thomas plays the head of sort of section. Jack Loudon, who is sort of the young up-and-coming intelligence officer, who actually is Scottish in real life. I didn't know that, but he's great.
And Hugo Weaving is in season 4.
Yeah. Didn't like him that much. Shit American accent.
No. Yeah. I think season 4 is the weakest of them all, but I still loved every minute of it.
Yeah. You could all. It would be a fun drinking game thing to do on a Saturday night. To continue with my theme of saying that Gary Oldman's character Jackson Lamb reminds me of former Senator, late Senator Alex Gallagher. Who are the rest of the characters in your workplace? I'm not going to get you to do it on the show, but you could do it. It'd be a lot of fun.
That's a great game. Should suggest that for your work Christmas party too.
God damn it, I will. I am. I'm going to do that next Thursday night. It's happening.
I hope that everyone makes it out alive, by the way, of your Christmas party.
I will appropriately wait until everyone is absolutely sourced before we embark on that journey. Okay, and the last one I want to nominate before we close it out is a documentary that I'd been waiting for it to come out for a couple of months when I first heard about it. It is, I watched it last night actually, posted up the credits on my Instagram account. Yacht Rock, a documentary, which is, it basically chronicles the rise of smooth West Coast progressive rock from sort of 1976 to about 1981, 82. So, and it's a documentary that's basically being produced by Bill Simmons, who is from The Ringer and podcast and you know, all that kind of stuff. And so basically Yacht Rock, I'm not going to explain what Yacht Rock is. You should just watch the documentary. But if you like bands like Steely Dan, Toto, the Doobie Brothers, Christopher Cross, Michael McDonald, all of those bands, basically all of the vinyl that your father had, then you'll love this documentary. It was great. It was 2 hours. I watched it last night on my own. I had a great time.
What did you say it was on?
Good question. I have got a dodgy internet connection from one of my cousins in Glasgow. And so I watched it on HBO itself. But I think in Australia, it would be on Binge.
Yeah, that sounds
75%
right.
certain it's on Binge.
Excellent.
All right. Tess Farrell, the Tesseract, Tessarossa. Good job.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This has been fun.
It has. Always fun. And thank you for taking the time to come on today and do the thing that we do each year. I hope you have a great Christmas break. I'm sure you're heading back to the good burgers of South Australia and catch up with the family.
Yes. Australia's best kept beaches, secret beaches. I will be on one for the Christmas period. So I hope everyone else enjoys their summer.
Indeed. And no doubt I'll talk to you in 12 months' time, unless there's another Taylor Swift tour in which we have to do an emergency pod.
Oh, I'd happy to. Anytime.
Last question. How are you feeling about now that the Eras tour has come to a conclusion?
Quite sad. Quite sad, actually. I really enjoyed the community it built, the sort of waking up in the morning, seeing pictures of wherever she was, sort of Switzerland or somewhere else in the world. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sad it's over, and I'm sad that we might not see Taylor for a little while. I think she might go off and get married to her footballer boyfriend and have a baby or something. So that makes me feel a bit concerned, but you know, we had a good time this year. It was amazing.
I'm sure it's left a massive hole in your life, but I'm sure there'll be other ways in which you'll find things to fill it with.
I hope so too.
Very good. Okay, very good. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Socially Democratic. Did you like the podcast? Hit the follow or subscribe button and be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser. And to get all the latest on Socially Democratic, follow Dunn Street on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And we'll see you next Friday.